They were more uncertain about what the Vichy French fleet would do, though, as they believed that they would still hold a grudge against the Western Allies, specifically against the British, for the incident in Mers El Kabir, when the British Navy decided that all of these French ships that now, after the French capitulation against Nazi Germany, would fall into the hands of the German Navy and be used against the British. So after having been told that they need to simply sink their own ships, and the French refused, the British fleet attacked and sank a couple of ships, leading to the death of around 1,000 French sailors. After that, the part of the Vichy French Navy which made it through decided to attack British positions in Gibraltar, and there was this conflict going on. So they were more uncertain about how the fleet would act. But in the end, probably out of self-preservation, they decided that there was no point in engaging these Western maritime forces. And this set the stage for future operations and future expansions. And in the next year, that first month and a half of the landing was very successful. And in 1943, the forces in northern Africa would move further and further east. Naturally, the big battles being El Alamein.
El Alamein, of course.
El Alamein, but also the siege of Tobruk, which was crucial for the Western Allies to hang on to their positions, which also had a quite large Polish component, Australian component as well. So it wasn't just the British and the Americans that fought over there. The Polish, they also played an important role in the intelligence gathering phase of Operation Torch. This landing in northern Africa was very much made possible by a Polish military intelligence officer known as Rygor, who, according to the Allies, was the only member of the Western Allied units that had his own large network of informants and agents in the region. He was a Pole who had initially been stationed in Kiev to conduct military intelligence against the Soviet Union. Once the Soviet Union and Poland had established diplomatical relations, it was possible to open up an embassy and conduct normal diplomatic activities. But as always, in Russian they are known the rezidentura. A lot of those diplomats are simply just spies. That usually the other side is even aware of the fact that this other side, that they are simply spies. So he was tasked with targeting southern Russia, especially the old areas that were once held by the White forces during the Civil War, Wrangel, Denikin. So here, his expertise was shaped in those years, but then after Poland fell in 1939, he, as many other Poles, moved to relocate with the Polish army to France. And once the French fell, he continued to northern Africa and was working there for many years. Returned to Great Britain first in 1944, and then lived a quite long life up to 1989. But was not very much engaged after the war in Polish military veteran circles, so to say. But his knowledge was certainly something that made that operation possible. Another example could be found from the later landing on the later stage in 1943. Once the Western Allies decided that now it was time to get a foothold on the European continent, and they decided to land in Sicily.
That's right, Sicily.
And here the intelligence gathering was very much left to the Americans, as the Americans had a large Italian and especially Sicilian diaspora.
Yes.
So the Americans were tasked with finding people on the island that they could cooperate with. Naturally, you find the enemies of my enemy. And when it came to the situation in Sicily, Mussolini had famously rooted out the mafia on the island. He didn't only make the trains run on time, as they reminisce fondly in Italy, but he also rooted out the mafia. So apart from his brutality and his murderous qualities is the wrong word, but that part of him, he did other things that in Italy and especially in Sicily, sometimes he still remembered fondly for. So rooting out the mafia was one of those things. Many of them fled to especially New York, but the East Coast in general in the US. And famously, one of the great mobsters of the time, Lucky Luciano, was contacted by American intelligence, and he had still very good contacts on the island. Quickly, they received all the information they needed. In some cases, there was even some active cooperation with these mafia members, simply joining the American troops and following them everywhere to be able to point out where the local fascist administrator in whatever village would live. So this type of intelligence gathering is key. And today in Ukraine, when the counter-offensive is happening in the areas where it is, Zaporizhia, Zaporizhia is a region which is ethnically more than 90% Ukrainian. There isn't really a lot of sympathies for the Russian cause in those areas.
Adam, as usual, the clock has interrupted, so I'm going to have to ask you to pause there, but we will pick it up next time. There we are. I've had to interrupt Adam almost in mid-sentence, but fear not, if you join us next time, as we hope you will, we'll pick up the story. In the meantime, thank you for watching Poland Daily History.